Hi, everyone. This is Daphne Liu. I'll be your host today for the SCORE podcast. Today, I have guests with me, Ellen and Alyssa. They're first years at Scripps, and they started their own podcast. So I'm going to turn it over to them and have them introduce themselves real quick.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm a first year at Scripps. I don't really know what my major is going to be, but I'm thinking maybe English and a Chinese minor. And I'm from the Bay Area. Ellie?
Yeah, hi everyone. Just like Daphne said, I am also a first year, and I am also from the Bay Area, and I am interested in doing a double major in EA and media studies. And thank you for having us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to chat with you all today. Could one of you give a quick overview of what you're doing with your podcast? Give our audience some context.
Yeah, of course. So our podcast is called 2024 Our Story. We're using it kind of like a time capsule to capture our feelings about starting college in the middle of a pandemic, and capturing just kind of the first year experience or what it's like to be a script student while we're online and during these like crazy times when so much is happening to just be able to have that for the future.
Yeah, and kind of touching on the fact that it's a time capsule, we're hoping to do this for our full time in college. So we still have some time to kind of um, record and just see how things turn out for everything. And every single year, we're hoping to have guests on our podcast, mostly from the Scripps class of 2024, but we're open to anybody. And just kind of see what our experiences are like and be able to kind of record them for the future.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so great that y'all are doing this. Definitely a great way to connect virtually. So glad that despite the virtual format, first years like you two are getting to connect in these ways. And I'm sure it's a great resource for your fellow peers. And I'm really excited to see what you all do. So we gathered today because as a senior, I thought it would be interesting to bring in voices of the first years and kind of look at our different perspectives in this year throughout coronavirus. So I had them come up with some topics that they'd like to chat about. So Eleanor, Alyssa, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, definitely. We kind of were thinking about first CLORG, so clubs and organization, the participation with that, because I know just being online in general, it's hard to get engagement from everybody, but I think especially first years because it's hard to kind of know where to go for resources or who to talk to and things. And it's been a wild ride, but I think for me personally, I really got connected to the Scripps voice through Ellen. So Ellen's been kind of my way of staying connected with everything that's happening because she's just great at keeping track of everything. But so so I am just that's mostly what my engagement is like for Clorgs for now. I have to admit that I haven't been as engaged as I probably would like for other organizations, but it's been hard online. But I'm glad that I'm at least connected with the Scripps voice and being able to write for that. So that's been pretty cool.
That's awesome. Have you been able to, in terms of like the virtual format, what is that looking like? Do you feel like you have a connection with the other staff writers? What are your meetings like? Is it once a week? Do you feel connected?
Ellen, you've been doing this a little bit longer than me, so do you kind of want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So Scripps Voice meetings are bi-weekly, but the editors in chief hold office hours on the weeks that we don't meet. So you can go in and talk to them. It's been really nice to connect with those upperclassmen on just like what Scripps life is like when we're normally in campus and how to write in this online environment as well. But yeah, I've met some really nice people through the voice. I think everyone is so passionate about what they do. It's really nice to see that as well. And was a staff, or not a staff writer. I was a part of my school's journalism program in high school, so it's been really nice to get back in the groove and do something that I feel comfortable in and feel just keep that general motivation going throughout this weird online formatting.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. I think it's really I remember going into this year and thinking, oh my goodness, how are we gonna get first years involved? How are we gonna get them interested in all these clubs? Like amidst everything, I can imagine a lot of like anxiety playing a part in trying to join things in a virtual format, right? But I'm really glad that y'all are involved and not only doing your own podcast, but also with the Scripps Voice and probably other clorgs. Yeah, I think for me, it's been interesting coming into it as a senior because I think different from you all, I know what it was like before, right, when I was in person. For me, I've been working at SCORE for the past 4 years, and it's been really great being able to be in person. Part of the job that I was doing, I was also a Pomona Hope intern, and part of that job is actually driving down to Pomona and working with high school students at Pomona Hope, which is an after school program. And so obviously that was completely different this year. Last semester, we had completely transformed the workshops that we did, like leadership and college success, onto a more online format. And so me and the Pomona Hope team were able to actually, I think, find more ways to engage with them because we were recording videos, doing workshops. I know this semester they're doing TikToks, which is really exciting. But it's been really interesting to see kind of that transition, and now being able to, but also seeing like what SCORE has been able to do with all of these with a virtual format, right? Exploring what that looks like. So for SCORE, also starting our podcast, which is what I'm working on right now. And I'm really thankful for those opportunities, even though we can't like meet you all in person, obviously, but at least we can connect and find new ways to find community, right? And let's see, what else? I also work with LASPA Center for Leadership. So that's also been really cool seeing how it works virtually. I think a lot of our events were in person as well. So it was different seeing just like how do we host office hours, right, online? How do I connect with my other LASPA Scholar in Action? That's like the intern title. And I think throughout it all, I would say one of the most grounding things is being able to rely on our amazing, amazing, I guess, bosses. That's the right word. Marissa Coe at SCORE, Vicky and Gretchen at LASPA. It's been really great to see how much they care about us and how much they want us to feel, at ease when we're working on jobs, like trying not to give us more stress. And really, I could really genuinely tell, like, their care for us because they also knew what it was like in person before, right? And, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's been really cool. So, yeah, it's great to hear about your experience. I really hope that you all can come back on campus next semester and really get to fully experience it. But you're super, super glad that you're plugged in.
Yeah. I think you had also mentioned how you have such great bosses. How has it been for you to be in this spring semester of senior year and have to transition out of those roles?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ellen. I'm feeling a little bittersweet. I think it's been kind of a culmination of all of these different emotions because going into my senior year, obviously, I want to be on campus, right, with my friends, doing the work that I love. But obviously, that wasn't possible. But being in terms of just looking at where I am now versus where I was when I started, I'm still really grateful for the ways that I've grown. I feel like I've really become someone that I never thought I would be in a good way, right? More confident, more ready to take on the world, more aware of just everything that's going on in the world. And it's been really good to see just how my fellow peers have grown along with me, like so many upperclassmen ahead of me I remember first interning at SCORE and my co-intern was a senior that year and learning so much from her. And even though it's online this year, I feel like I've still been able to make those connections. Right now, the programming team, the other two that are working with me, Aloe and Megan, they're sophomores. So not a little closer in age to you all. But it's been really great just getting to connect with them and helping them, decide their major or giving them advice on like summer and stuff. So I think it's definitely a little bittersweet that I'm leaving on a note where I can't see these people in person, see the people I've been working with in person. But there have also been a lot of silver linings throughout this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you have to end senior year in this way. It's definitely not ideal, but it's so great that you feel like you've developed so much. I think that's one of the things that at least I don't know about you, Alyssa, but one of the things I'm looking forward to over the next few years is getting to really explore myself and grow in ways that I didn't think were possible or generally possible so far.
Yeah, and kind of bonding with the community, I think. Ellen, you and I have talked about it a little bit on our own, a little kind of, but just I feel like that sense of community is so important. So in a way, it's it's kind of hard starting with like a lack of that sense of community, but hopefully we can build it more on campus. I feel like in a way we've kind of been able to build it a little bit virtually, which has been pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So glad to hear that. And I know that something interesting is obviously as first years you had orientation, right? Do you all want to share a little bit about what that experience was like? I'm really curious.
Yeah, definitely. Alyssa, would you like to go first?
Okay. Um yeah, so for orientation, I don't exactly remember what it was called.
NSPO.
Maybe 3. Okay, NSPO.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Ellen. But we we participated in a lot of online events, I think, where they were kind of just telling us about the school and things. And I feel like that was more of like an information dump kind of situation where for more community based things for orientation, we were with I think a peer mentor group where we had a upperclassman with a group of first years, and we kind of met a couple times, I think, and we played games together, and we kind of just talked, and we just got to know each other a little bit better. So I think that was more of their way of kind of trying to get us to meet in smaller groups and get to know each other like that, which I think was a good strategy since we were online, so you might as well take advantage of it and let people be in small groups so that they're a little more comfortable with meeting each other. So my experience was pretty good. It was a little awkward, I don't think I really stayed in touch with a lot of the people who are in my group. Sometimes that just happens though. You'll see them in class and recognize them, which is always a nice first step.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I think
Sorry,
no,
go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say no. I think the awkwardness is pretty universal, whether it's virtual or in person. I remember the awkwardness of sitting on the lawn with a bunch of first years and our peer mentor. But no, it's great to hear that. Yeah, and what was your experience like, Ellen?
I think my experience was pretty similar to Alyssa's. I remember lots of the information sessions were asynchronous, or they were synchronous, and then they recorded them and put them on. I think it was some app. Do you remember what it was, Alyssa? I don't know. It was some app that you signed up for, and then you could access all of the videos, and they had a schedule for like every day of the week. Actually, I think it was 2 weeks. They extended it because they were deciding what was happening with fall semester. Everything was going on then. So a lot of that was asynchronous, and then we met with the peer mentors. And I just remember my group didn't know. A lot of us turned our mics off when we weren't talking because we were so used to doing that in like other classes. And I just felt that Sam was my wonderful peer mentor, and then community coordinator. She was so great, but it was just like, do when you're not talking. It's like that weird Zoom, like figuring out how exactly that dynamic's gonna work. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I know Alyssa and I have talked about whether or not we're gonna get a different form of orientation when we get on campus, or what that might look like. If they're gonna do anything else there, just because being on campus orientation may be a little bit different, but I don't know. What was orientation like for you, Daphne?
Oh my goodness. I feel old. It's been such a long time. Um, but yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear about the way that they transferred it onto the virtual format. For me, I think it was just like a week before, or that makes sense, like a week before school started, right? Moved in. I remember meeting my roommate on the first day, and actually we were roommates for the next 2 years as well. So she's definitely one of my best friends now, which is really nice being able to, have that connection. But sorry, that was a tangent. But yeah, I think orientation was really interesting. It was just like a bunch of, like all these first years who don't really know what they're doing yet, but like kind of excited, nervous, awkward, all gathered together. We had a good number of events at the auditorium, like outside. When you come on campus, you'll know that the food is really good. Sometimes I think at some point you get jaded, but you just move on to the next dining hall and you kind of switch back and forth. But no, the orientation was fun. I think the highlight maybe it's something that you all unfortunately didn't get to experience, but we did do some like day excursions out to LA, and I remember canoeing with one of my new friends, and that was really it was a fun bonding experience. But I'm sure y'all will have experiences like that when you come back. So yeah, orientation, I think it's the same old, same old. Lots of information thrown at you, but also a good time just to get to know people and to like see everything for what it is. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I'm sure I've told this to you, Ellen, but it kind of feels like the people that you meet during those kind of first weeks, or at least the people that I met in our summer class and the people I met through orientation, it kind of felt like a summer camp almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like I wasn't actually going to school with them, or like I wasn't gonna like see them again or something,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really funny because I'm sure when it's such a small campus, compared to other schools. So I'm sure that I'll be seeing them all again, and it'll be interesting to be able to see them in person. And be like, oh yeah, we did orientation together a long time ago,
Are
or yeah.
are any of the people that you met in your peer mentor groups, are they in your classes? I know you say I know you also you didn't keep in touch with all of them, obviously, which makes sense. But anyone that you did like really connect with, wondering.
Um, I was in my peer mentor group had one of my closer friends, but we didn't stay connected because of the peer mentor group. We met like on our own
Okay.
side because we got connected through our academic. We have a shared academic advisor. So we met
Mm.
there, and she's actually in Alyssa's core 2 class, which is really funny. Uh,
Oh.
but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the people who I've met through like mini breakout rooms in classes I see again. So like we got new biology breakout room groups, and I know every single one person in that group from a different group that I've been in at some point in time in the past. So it's really funny. People just pop up and you're like, oh, hi again.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what about for you, Alyssa?
Yeah, I think I've seen people again, but I don't think I like connected as well
Mm-hmm.
because of orientation. Not to say that they didn't like they didn't try, they did try. We were kind of awkward, and again, like Ellen said, we were all muted and playing games and things, and after the required time that we had to be together, nobody like wanted to hang out after that. So that was kind of sad. But I think I've definitely seen people around. Some people, I think one person's in my Core 2 class now,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. You kind of see them around, but I do think that oddly enough, groups for classes ends up being like more of a bonding experience, maybe because you're forced to talk to each other because you have to get something done. But yeah, it wasn't like a huge bonding time for me. I think it was more of an experience to kind of get used to the community feeling of Scripps, and also kind of just seeing faces that in the future, if I see them again, it won't feel so weird.
Mm, yeah. No, that's so interesting. When you're saying like seeing them around, it's so interesting because I'm thinking like, like when we're in person, obviously it's like I'm walking past them on the on the sidewalk, but for you all, or for me, I mean, this year too, right? All of us, it's like seeing them around is like, do I see them in class? Do I see them in Clorg events? Things like that. But I think that's really interesting. I feel like it's the same for me with my peer mentor group. Honestly, don't even remember who was in my peer mentor group. Maybe I'm friends with them, but I don't remember if we're in the same peer mentor group, if you know what I mean. But I know that you all both brought up core, so I think that might be an interesting topic to talk about. I know y'all mentioned that. Do you have any specific questions? Or I'd love to know actually like what your specific experiences with that. I know y'all are doing truth, right? Ellen, maybe if you want to start.
Yeah, of course. So yes, our theme was truth. And it was really interesting the way that they like reformatted everything, because from my understanding of what core usually is, everyone gathers in like an auditorium and everyone hears the lecture at the same time. But because we're online, the lectures were turned into asynchronous recordings and were released on Fridays, and you had like the weekend to watch them before you talked about them in core classes. And then they actually added these meetings for everyone who wanted to could join and ask questions for the professor who had given the lectures, because you couldn't do that in an asynchronous setting. And so at least one student from each group was required to go and ask questions during the question and answer session, and then report back to their course sections every Tuesday, I believe it was. And then it was just meet in sections. I know that my experience for course section meetings was different than Alyssa's. We went into breakout rooms and had individual smaller conversations, and then went back into the main room and had a larger conversation. But it was effective. We'd have stations even though it was online, so that was great for me.
That's great.
Yeah, so my experience was a little bit different from Ellen's. For most of the logistics stuff, it was exactly the same. The only thing was that I think it depended on the professor, but professors could kind of choose how they structured their classes a little bit. So for us, I know that we assigned a student after a certain amount of time. We like assigned a student each week to kind of choose how they wanted to structure the class. Like they were made the host, they got to make the breakout rooms, they did everything. They could choose whether people were in like rooms of two or something, or if we want to talk in a whole group, and what we kind of wanted to talk about, other than discussion questions that we had or comments that we had on the Sakai forums and things like that. So yeah, it was, I think, something that my Core 1 professor did kind of talk about was like having those deep conversations. It is about truth, and especially since it was like this fall was already crazy. I mean, it's crazy right now too, but like so much was happening. We were reading Citizen. I know that they like switched the order or something for us for what order we were reading books in, but we read Citizen, and it was right after not right after, it's not over, but it was like as soon as kind of the Black Lives Matter movement was like, I don't know if it was dying down at the time, but it was talked about a little bit less, I think, on the press. And we like being able to kind of navigate those deeper conversations or more personal conversations online can be pretty difficult. I think breakout rooms were good for some people, maybe not good for others. So I think that was one of the main differences for at least what my Core 1 professor said was different from being in person versus online, kind of being able to figure out how to have those conversations in a safe space, because you're also at home, and who knows if you have privacy wherever you are doing your class. So just kind of figuring that all out.
That's so interesting to hear. I it's like taking me back to Core 1, thinking about just the different conversations. Like, so for me, for the listeners, my year, for Scripps, we rotate core topics every 3 years. And so for my year, we talked about communities. That was the overarching topic. And I think what core tries to get at, right, is having those deep conversations having those, broadening your worldview on issues that the world is experiencing. I think very similar to your experiences, the content, I think, um, is discussed in similar manners. Definitely lots of deep discussions and interesting conversations. For me, obviously, if you can imagine, it's like we're all in the auditorium sitting there, lectures, and then we also had our own sections in which like everyone's sitting in a classroom facing each other, right? So no small groups, which I think might be a little bit more intimidating. I know I was really thankful that I had a good discussion group and a great breakout room or section leader, section professor. We had really great conversations. I know that, I don't know if this is a little more of a hot take, but there's definitely been talks about just how the space that's taken up in these conversations and the specific topics that are being taught in core, and how I guess how space is facilitated in those conversations. Sometimes we're talking about experiences that students have experienced personally, and what does it look like to be someone who's a first person, who has a first person view, sitting in a classroom learning about things with people who have never learned about things like this before, right? I think that space is hard to navigate, but if navigated well, it can be done really well. But the hard part is that it's hard to do well. So there's definitely been experiences from my friends that I've heard about. But I think in some ways it's also really good to be able to have those conversations, even just like taking it outside of the classroom, right? And hearing about what people's thoughts are about their discussions, without, like monitoring of like what the discussion is, without someone monitoring it. But yeah, that's really cool. I'm wondering, I'm not sure if I'm right, but are you all reading Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong in Core 1, 2, something?
In core one, we did last semester, which was pretty like timing wise, it was pretty perfect.
And how's core 2? What topics are you all in? I'm interested in hearing about that.
I'm in my core 2 class is performances of identity. So we're kind of looking at like different performance types, whether it's like a musical, play, opera, things like that. And then usually it's surrounding some kind of topic. We've talked about like the US and US history a lot. Like with that kind of we watched like presidential inaugurations one time, and then like Olympics the next time, kind of like looking at how these performances affect just history and identity and things like that.
Wow, that's so interesting. I think that's the thing about like the next cores, right? Core 2 and core 3 is like focusing on something really interesting. I really enjoyed those. What about you, Ellen? What is your core 2 about?
Yeah, my core 2 is Subversive Selves. So we're talking about Black history in the US and racial, just general of what's going on right now. It's been really relevant. And so it's been really interesting to have the conversations and really put the work in to learn a lot more about what's going on. And so the connected history of even not just Black history, but what's going on now with the Asian community as well.
Wow, I remember hearing about that class. I can't remember if it was the class I really wanted to take. I think it was offered in my year, which is why that title sounds so familiar. But no, you're completely right. I think, obviously, as we're talking about it, anti-Asian violence, right, happening right now. This is the date we're recording this is March 26th. So kind of like the Atlanta shootings happened last week. And so I definitely feel like it's really interesting to see what we're talking about in these classrooms, right? And how that's reflected in the world right now. And hoping there's opportunities to learn, and that hopefully the conversations are being facilitated in a way that is a learning space and not a scary space to be in, I guess. But yeah, I think those core 2 classes, I did, oh my goodness, what did I do? I think I did constructions. I think it was called Constructions of Kinship with Professor Novi. he was phenomenal. I loved getting to work with him and just learning about. We read some really interesting books. I honestly it was a really good experience for me because he was an English professor, so we did a lot more writing in that class, but also learned a lot. We read like Frederick Douglass, and I feel like maybe a little similar to Subversive Cells in some ways, but not entirely, but learned a lot. And then my last for core 3, I also would be interested in hearing what y'all are thinking about for next semester. But for me, I did the language clinic where we went and taught languages at the local elementary school. And that was a really great experience for me too. I taught Mandarin. So I got to brush up on my Mandarin skills, and then also got to learn about what it means to be a teacher. How do you help other people learn? So that was really cool. Yeah.
That is so interesting. I don't think that we've necessarily had that discussion about what core 3 fully is yet. Could you tell us a little bit about what your experience was like or how you chose?
Yeah, definitely. So I honestly cannot tell you the difference between core 2 and core 3. I think it's a similar thing. Like, you have the overarching topic of truth, right? And then professors offer specific courses that are similar or that tie in with the theme. And I think core 3 is just another opportunity to do that in the way that I see it. I think it might be supposed to be more applicational in a sense, which is why, like, for me, it was like going out and teaching, right? I know there's other courses where they did like video production or they did like other dance. I know maybe similar to you, Alyssa. I don't know if you're virtual, so I don't know if you got to do any performances or if that's the final project or anything. But I'd say it's just an extension. I will say, for me, I had the last registration slot that time, so I was a little bit worried. I think you all probably know what it was like trying to get the core 2 you wanted. But similar for core 3. Luckily, the language clinic was like a perm situation, so you should definitely research if there's certain classes that are like you need to apply for them, and then that kind of bypasses the registration time because it's based on accepting. I don't know if any other ones other than the language clinic are, but that's kind of how I was like, that was one I was definitely interested in for sure, but I was able to get one that I was interested in because it was more of an application-based one. Yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, that's so good to know. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. At least I'm pretty excited to see like the core 3 options that we have and what we're gonna be able to talk about and what we're gonna be able to do. So hopefully that's a future discussion.
Definitely, yeah. Feel free to ask me questions too if you have any questions about the classes. Maybe I might know some of them. To zoom out the scope a little bit, I think talking about specifically classroom experience might be interesting. I'd love to hear about maybe the first time that you went to class virtual. I know it must be different, right? Because like for me, for all my classes, I actually know other people because I had classes that I'd taken with them before. But for you all as first years, going straight into a virtual learning environment, how was that for you? How has the classroom experience been?
Yeah, I would say first semester, I was very lucky because I was in generally small classes. I took like my media studies class was like 5 people, so I really got to know the upperclassmen. It was me and like 4 other upperclassmen, so I got to talk to them about their experiences, and everyone was so nice and was able to give me tips and tricks on how to deal with the 5 C's. It's from the last semester online. And then in my like larger classes for like chemistry and Spanish, I think breakout rooms were extremely helpful. I got to know lots of people through there. I was put in a breakout room with this one guy every single time, and it like wasn't even planned, so it's like an inside joke now. But yeah, I think the breakout rooms definitely help for me just because when I'm in breakout rooms, I like to talk. And so it's nice to have a conversation going. But I do understand people who aren't as big fans of breakout rooms because they can be extremely awkward. But yeah, how about you, Alyssa?
My first experience of taking a class was in the summer with you when Oh no, it's okay. I mean, more for me to talk about. Yeah, I took a summer class, environmental economics. It was more of a lecture class. I think it was like 2.5 hours or something. So it was on the longer side. I think for me, I was kind of using it as a introduction to how college classes felt and everything. Of course, it was online, so it's going to be a little bit different. But I think it was really helpful, um, like to get used to it in that sense, but also I think Zoom made it harder to like stay focused. I know that like sitting at the computer for like 2.5 hours trying to listen to a lecture the whole time was kind of difficult. But when we actually started like the fall, I also started doing breakout rooms, which was super helpful for me. And I also really appreciate them. I think just in general, the classroom experience is it's different because of participation, I would say, because it depends on what class you're in, but I know that I'm taking biology this semester, or bio 44, and it's one of my bigger classes, like 40, 45 students. And I know that in those breakout rooms, nobody likes to talk, so I can definitely feel why it'd be really awkward to be in those kinds of breakout rooms all the time. So I think it's kind of harder to get students to stay engaged and participate and really put themselves out there when you're online. I think just judging the online classes I've taken against the in person high school ones that I've taken. So I think overall, it's not. It was helpful for me, like being a first year, and kind of getting used to the academics of college, and kind of be able to focus on that so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, I think. Um, I also, when I first thought, like, was thinking about going to college, I got really nervous about like having to find where classes were because I feel like I personally get lost really easily. So I feel like that was something I was really worried about. So I don't have to deal with that right now, which has been a plus for me. But I know that once we are on campus, that will be something I'll have to tackle.
I'll walk around with you, Alyssa. We can go like plan out the routes together.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't help you out because I'll be gone. But I believe that you'll do great. And let me tell you, I am so bad with. I think it took me like a month to actually figure out because it's not just Scripps, right? You're also walking to other places at the 5Cs. Oh my goodness, I definitely got lost. But you'll get there. You'll get to a point where you know where you're going. I believe in you. Yeah. No, yeah, that's really interesting to hear about. I know I've been talking to I think I was talking to my thesis advisor last week, and she's been doing thesis advising and like upper div classes, but also teaching like intro classes. And she was telling me about how different the students like were because first years were kind of like really excited to be there, like wanting to I don't know if this is how you all felt, but from her point of view, like they wanted to be making friends, you know, they wanted to be talking to each other. Whereas like the upperclassmen were more like, okay, like we know what we're doing, like let's just like finish class and stuff like that. But it's really interesting because usually like for my experience, it's like you're making friends with the people that like you have lunch with and like you live with and all of that. But for you all, it's more about who you're seeing in classrooms, right? And I think maybe this is a silver lining. You can tell me if it's not or it is, but I feel like you're actually more able to be friends with people in your class. From my experiences, like classroom was just okay, you're in class and then you like maybe say hi to the people that you're sitting near most of the time and sometimes ask for like homework questions, but for the most part I'm not hanging out or like becoming friends with the people in my class. It's more of just the people who live in my dorm or are in Clorgs with me. So that might be like a difference in the way that you're like connecting with other people. I don't know, do you feel that way at all?
Um, yeah, for me, I think breakout rooms are something that like are good to kind of get to know people. Because I think if you're in person, you kind of have to like stay more focused on what's happening in class because like you're there and you're with the professor the entire time. But being in breakout rooms, I know that once I'm kind of done with the conversation for class, some students and I will just, I don't know, just check in with each other and just talk in general. So I think that's been the way that I feel like I connect the most with people when in a classroom setting, because that's kind of all you got right now, unless you want to count like following people on Instagram or commenting on their posts. That's like something else I guess you could consider like online making friends. But for me, yeah, my friends, quotation marks. But yeah, I think breakout rooms and being able to like talk when the professor is not there, it's been for me a way to make
Yeah,
friends.
I definitely feel the same. It's so interesting you bring up that point, Daphne, because I hadn't thought of that before.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely for me, classes have been the main form of forming friendships. Uh, and then some clerks, I've gotten close to my ASP group, which has been nice. So
Mhm.
there's like that kind of overlap there, but it definitely has been more
Mm.
difficult to find friends in other ways.
Mm.
It's so interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's really good to hear from your perspectives, like seeing how y'all are doing and how college life, I think, is quite different in most ways, but also similar in some ways, right? Having, yeah, I don't know. I admire your y'all's resilience and the ability to, still keep going. I know first year, like navigating the first year, like normally is hard for a lot of people, and y'all being able to do that in this way is also really great. And so yeah, I think, like there's so much we could keep on going on about, but for this podcast at least, I think we're gonna wrap it up. And it was so great getting to talk to both you, Helen, or sorry, pause. All right, it was so great to get to chat with you, Ellen and Alyssa. It's been really great. I hope that we can continue to connect. Definitely feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything, and maybe I'll reach out to you. I think there's learning opportunities both ways. So, and so their podcast is 2024 Our Story, and they're also published through the SCORE account. So if you want to check out their perspectives on just some of the things that they've been experiencing as first years at Scripps, go check them out. Check out the rest of the SCORE podcast as well. You can find us on Instagram at @score_Scripps. Feel free to give us comments, feedback. We'd love to hear from y'all. But yeah, again, thank you all so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us. It's been so great to talk to you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening, and hope you all join us in our next episode of the SCORE podcast. Bye.
Bye.